5 years ago, my little brother Kyle called me at 2 in the morning, sobbing, like his world was ending. He told me he was losing Sarah, the girl he had loved since college, the only woman who made him believe in forever. Without hesitation, I said the words that would change everything. I told him I would help him whatever it took. I meant it with every fiber of my being. Back then, I thought that was what brothers did for each other. I had no idea those words would cost me everything I had built. Before I tell you how helping my little brother turned into the biggest betrayal of my life, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button if you have ever gone out of your way to help family even when it hurt. And subscribe because you will want to hear how this story ends. Trust me, you will not see it coming. So let me take you back to where it all started. I am Rich, and Kyle is 3 years younger than me. We were not just brothers. We were all each other had. When I was 19 and Kyle was 16, our parents died in a car accident on a rainy November night. One moment we had a family, the next moment we were orphans staring at caskets. I was in my second year of college on a full engineering scholarship. Kyle was a junior in high school with dreams of becoming an architect. After the funeral, I had a choice to make. I could stay in school and let Kyle go into foster care, or I could step up. I chose him. I dropped out of college and took 2 jobs. I worked construction during the day and stocked shelves at a grocery store at night. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. My body ached constantly, but I kept going because Kyle needed me. I made sure he had clean clothes, hot meals, and a roof over his head. I went to his parent-teacher conferences and sat in the bleachers at his basketball games. I became his father, his mother, and his brother all at once. Kyle graduated high school with honors and got a partial scholarship to a decent university. I covered the rest. I paid his tuition, his rent, his books, everything. I wanted him to have the future our parents would have wanted for him. Kyle thrived in college. He was smart, charming, and determined. In his 3rd year, he called me one evening, his voice buzzing with excitement. He had met a girl named Sarah in a study group. She was brilliant, he said, top of her class in economics. She came from money. Her father was a prominent lawyer in the city, the kind of man who wore custom suits and drove luxury cars. Kyle was mesmerized by her. Every week he called to tell me about Sarah, how she laughed at his jokes, how she challenged him in debates, how she made him want to be better. I encouraged him. I told him to be himself, to be patient. Love takes time, I said. After a year of friendship, Sarah finally agreed to go on a date with Kyle. He was over the moon. They started dating seriously, and Kyle seemed happier than I had ever seen him. He sent me pictures of them together. Sarah smiling at the camera, Kyle looking at her like she hung the stars. I was genuinely happy for him. He deserved happiness after everything we had been through. Then came that phone call at 2 in the morning. I was asleep in my small apartment, exhausted from a double shift when my phone rang. Kyle was crying so hard I could barely understand him. Sarah wanted to break up, he said. Her family did not approve of him. They thought he was not good enough, not financially stable enough, not from the right background. Her parents were pushing her to meet other men from wealthy families, men who fit their idea of suitable. Sarah loved Kyle, he insisted, but she could not stand up to her family. He was losing her, and he did not know what to do. He sobbed into the phone, and I felt my heart break for him. He had not cried like that since our parents' funeral. I made a decision that night. Kyle had sacrificed enough in his life. He had lost his parents, watched his brother struggle to keep them afloat, and worked hard to build a future. He deserved this happiness. He deserved Sarah. I told him I would help him. I came up with a plan. If Sarah's family thought Kyle was not good enough, then we would make him look good enough. We would give him the appearance of stability and success. I gave Kyle $15,000. It was every cent I had saved over the years. I had been saving to buy a small house, a place, to finally call my own. But Kyle needed it more. I told him to use the money to buy nice suits, to rent a better apartment, to get a decent used car. I wanted him to look like someone Sarah's family could respect. Kyle took the money without much emotion. He said thank you, but his tone was flat, almost dismissive. I brushed it off. He was stressed about Sarah. Of course he was not himself. Then I did something else. I worked at a financial consulting firm, and I used my connections to get Kyle an entry-level analyst position. It was not a glamorous job, but it was respectable, and it paid well enough to impress Sarah's parents. I put my own reputation on the line to vouch for him. My boss trusted me, so he hired Kyle. I thought I was giving my brother a future. I thought I was helping him build the life he deserved. I told myself this was what family did. I ignored the small voice in my head that whispered, he did not seem grateful. I convinced myself he was just overwhelmed. 6 months later, my plan seemed to be working. Kyle looked the part. He wore tailored suits to work, drove a clean car, and lived in a nicer neighborhood. Sarah's parents started to warm up to him. They invited him to family dinners and asked him about his career plans. Kyle told me they were finally taking him seriously. Then one evening he called me with the news. He had proposed to Sarah and she had said yes. I cried when he told me. I felt like everything I had sacrificed was worth it. My little brother was going to marry the love of his life. But then Kyle said something that made my stomach twist. Sarah's parents wanted a big wedding. They were paying for half, but Kyle needed to cover his share to prove he was serious about providing for their daughter. His half of the wedding costs came to $35,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. I had just given him $15,000. I had $8,000 left in my savings account. I was barely making ends meet as it was. But Kyle was desperate. He said he needed this. He said Sarah's parents would never fully accept him if he could not contribute equally. He begged me. I went to the bank and applied for a personal loan. $30,000 at a high interest rate because my credit was not great. I justified it to myself. Kyle would have a good life with Sarah. He would have a stable job and a loving wife. He would pay me back eventually. This was an investment in his future, I told myself. I gave him the money, all of it. I did not keep a single dollar for myself. Kyle took it and thanked me briefly before hanging up. I sat alone in my apartment staring at the loan documents, wondering if I had made the right choice. Over the next few months, Kyle changed. He stopped calling me as often. When I saw him at work, he avoided me. He did not ask me to lunch anymore. He did not stop by my desk to chat. When I brought up the money, asking if he had a plan to start paying me back, he snapped at me. He told me not to pressure him, that he would pay me back when he was settled. I felt hurt, but I swallowed it down. He was busy planning a wedding. He was stressed. I made excuses for him. Sarah came to the office a few times to visit Kyle. She was polite to me, but there was a coldness in her eyes. She looked at me like I was someone she had to tolerate, not someone who had made her wedding possible. I started hearing things from coworkers. Kyle was telling people he had earned his position at the company through hard work. He was telling them he had built his life from nothing. He never mentioned me. Not once. I overheard him talking to a colleague one day. The colleague asked how Kyle had gotten the job, and Kyle said I had gotten him an interview, but that he had earned his spot. The words stung. Earned. He had not paid me back a single cent, and he was acting like he had done this all on his own. The wedding was extravagant. It was held at a 5-star hotel with 200 guests. The ballroom was decorated with white roses and crystal chandeliers. Everything was perfect. I attended hoping Kyle would acknowledge me in his speech. He stood at the microphone in his expensive tuxedo and thanked everyone. He thanked Sarah's parents for welcoming him into their family. He thanked his friends for their support. He thanked everyone who believed in him. He did not mention me. Not even once. I sat at a table near the back, not at the family table, and felt invisible. After the ceremony, I went to congratulate him. I told him I was happy for him, that this was what we had worked for. He looked at me with cold eyes and said what we worked for. He said he had done this himself. Sarah pulled him away before I could respond. I stood in the middle of that beautiful wedding reception and felt like a ghost. 3 months after the wedding, I still had not received a single dollar from Kyle. I was paying $600 a month on the personal loan, and it was draining me. I called him repeatedly, but he never answered. I went to his new apartment, a fancy place in a trendy neighborhood. Sarah opened the door. She looked annoyed. Kyle was not home, she said. I told her I needed to talk to him about the money that I was struggling to make the loan payments. She gave me a look of pure disdain. She told me that was between me and him, and that I should not bring my problems to their doorstep. Then she shut the door in my face. The next week, I ran into Kyle at work during a coffee break. I tried to talk to him about the money. He exploded. He said he had never asked me to give him that money. He said I had offered it, and that was on me. I stared at him in disbelief. I told him I had given up everything for him. He said that was my choice, that he had never forced me to do anything. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there stunned. 2 weeks later, I received an email from Human Resources. They wanted to meet with me about concerns regarding workplace conduct. I had no idea what they were talking about. When I arrived at the meeting, the HR manager told me there had been a complaint. Kyle had filed a report claiming I was abusing my position of power to demand money from him. He said I was threatening to get him fired if he did not pay me back with interest. I felt the room spin. None of that was true. I explained that I had given him money, that I had taken out a loan to help him, that I had never threatened him. The HR manager said Kyle had provided text messages showing I was harassing him about money. She said they needed to investigate and that I was being suspended for 2 weeks. The news spread through the office like wildfire. People whispered when I walked by. The rumor was that I was blackmailing my own brother. Co-workers who used to smile at me now avoided eye contact. I called Kyle over and over, but he never answered. I sent him messages asking why he was doing this. He never replied. I felt my entire world collapsing. The reputation I had built over years was being destroyed by lies. The story did not stay contained to the office. Someone posted about it anonymously on the company's internal gossip forum. From there, it spread to social media. Friends saw the posts and started asking me questions. I tried to explain, but no one believed me. Kyle and Sarah had spent months building an image of themselves as a self-made couple who had overcome adversity. Sarah posted on Instagram about building their life from scratch with no help. Kyle posted about overcoming family toxicity to find happiness. People saw those posts and assumed I was the toxic family member. Even some of my close friends started doubting me. A friend from high school sent me a message asking if it was true if I had really tried to exploit Kyle. I felt completely alone. I stopped sleeping. I lost weight. I could not eat. I looked in the mirror and did not recognize myself. One morning I hit rock bottom. I stared at my reflection and saw a broken man. I realized I was letting Kyle destroy me. I decided I would not let that happen anymore. I needed to fight back. I needed evidence. I spent the next week gathering everything I could find. I pulled bank statements showing the transfers I had made to Kyle. I found the documents from my personal loan. I dug up old emails where I had helped Kyle apply for the job. I found text messages from years ago where Kyle had thanked me and told me he owed me everything. I scanned and copied everything. I saved it all in multiple places. Then I found a lawyer who specialized in defamation. He reviewed my case and told me I had grounds to sue, but litigation would be expensive and take time. I told him I did not care. I was not going to let Kyle get away with this. I also wrote a detailed email to Human Resources. I attached every piece of evidence I had. I showed them the bank transfers proving I had given Kyle money, not loaned it to him. I included the loan documents showing I had borrowed money from the bank to help him. I asked them to review security footage from the office to see that I had never been threatening toward Kyle. Human Resources reopened the investigation. They called Kyle in for another meeting. They confronted him with the evidence. Kyle could not explain why there were bank transfers if I had supposedly loaned him money with interest. He tried to say I had given it willingly, but then demanded it back with unfair terms. The HR manager asked if he had any proof of the interest I had supposedly charged. He did not. They reviewed the security footage and found that every interaction between Kyle and me had been calm and professional. There was no evidence of threats or intimidation. Human Resources concluded that Kyle had filed a false report. They fired him for making false accusations and creating a hostile work environment. They reinstated me and issued a formal apology. But I turned down the offer to return. I told them I could not work there anymore. There were too many painful memories. I accepted a severance package and left the company. After Kyle was fired, I went to see him one last time. I needed closure. Kyle and Sarah were in crisis. Without his income, they were struggling. When I arrived at their apartment, Kyle opened the door. He looked terrible. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. Sarah stood behind him staring at the floor. She looked guilty, but she did not say anything. I did not go there to gloat. I went there to say what I needed to say. I told Kyle I forgave him, but I was done. He was no longer my brother. He stood there silently, unable to meet my eyes. I told him I had given him everything because I loved him. He had repaid me with betrayal. I said I hoped one day he would understand what he had lost. Then I told him to keep the money. I said it was the price of learning who he really was. I walked away without looking back. As I left that apartment, I felt something I had not felt in months. I felt free. I did not need Kyle to apologize or pay me back. I had reclaimed my dignity and my self-respect. The weight I had been carrying was finally gone. This was not about revenge or getting even. It was about standing up for myself. It was about knowing my worth. I had won not because Kyle lost his job or his marriage, but because I had chosen myself. The first few months after cutting ties with Kyle were hard. I still had moments of grief. I would wake up from dreams about our childhood memories of Kyle and me playing basketball in the driveway, of him running to hug me when he was scared. I kept asking myself where it had gone wrong. When had he changed? Eventually, I realized the truth. Kyle had felt inferior because he had always depended on me. He did not want to remember the struggles, the poverty, the fact that his brother had sacrificed everything for him. He wanted to erase me from his success story. Understanding that helped, but it still hurt. I started seeing a therapist. It was the best decision I made. She helped me process the betrayal and the loss. She taught me that I could not control how others responded to my kindness. I could only control how I moved forward. Slowly, I began to heal. I used my severance package to pay down the personal loan. Then I started looking for a new job. I found a position at a small startup. It was a fresh start in a place where no one knew my past. At the startup, I met Marcus, the founder. He was in his early 40s, sharp and driven. We connected quickly. Over coffee one day, Marcus told me his own story. He had been betrayed by his business partner, someone he had considered family. He understood what I was going through. Marcus became more than a boss. He became a friend. He told me something I have never forgotten. He said the people who hurt us the most are often the people we loved the most, but that does not mean we stop loving ourselves. Those words changed me. I started taking care of myself. I joined a gym and worked out regularly. I began writing in a journal, documenting my feelings and the lessons I was learning. At work, I poured myself into projects. My experience and dedication paid off. Within a year, I was promoted to senior consultant. My income improved significantly. I paid off the personal loan completely. For the first time in years, I started saving money again. This time, I was saving for myself, for my own future. One day, a mutual friend mentioned Kyle. I had not thought about him in months. The friend told me Kyle and Sarah had divorced. Apparently, after Kyle lost his job, Sarah's parents had pressured her to leave him. She could not handle the pressure and had agreed to the divorce. Kyle was living alone now, working part-time jobs to get by. He had tried to contact me once through email asking if we could talk. I read the message but did not respond. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, no anger, just indifference. His life was no longer my concern. I had moved on. I learned some important lessons from everything that happened. The first lesson is that love is not always returned, and that is okay. You cannot force someone to appreciate your sacrifices. The second lesson is that helping someone does not mean destroying yourself. There is a difference between generosity and self-destruction. I crossed that line and it cost me dearly. The third lesson is that betrayal from family hurts the most, but it also teaches you to love yourself. When everyone else abandons you, you have to be your own anchor. The fourth lesson is that not every relationship is worth saving. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. I do not regret helping Kyle. I regret not setting boundaries sooner. I regret giving so much that I had nothing left for myself. But I do not regret the love I showed him. That love was real even if he could not see it. I have learned to forgive myself for my mistakes. Forgiveness is not about excusing what Kyle did. It is about freeing myself from the weight of bitterness. Now when I sit on the balcony of my new apartment and watch the sunset, I feel at peace. I think about the journey I have been on, the pain I endured, and the strength I found. I used to think family meant standing by each other no matter what. Now I know it means standing up for yourself when you need to. Kyle taught me that the hardest person to save is someone who does not want to be saved. And the most important person to save is yourself. Sometimes the greatest love you can show is not sacrificing everything for someone else. It is knowing when to let go and choosing to pour that love back into yourself. That is a lesson I will carry for the rest of my life. Have you ever helped someone who turned their back on you? How did you find the strength to move forward? Let me know in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories about betrayal, resilience, and finding yourself again. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your worth is not defined by how others treat you. Take care of yourself, and remember you deserve the love you so freely give to others.